Hello and welcome to your biology class. My name is Sam and today we're talking about something really cool, which is speciation. Yeah, how a new species is born. Alright? And we're starting with a couple of questions. The first one is, what is a species? You might as well remember that. We've seen it before. And what do you think are factors necessary to beget a new species? Alright? Give it some thought. Maybe look it up. You get it? Okay. Well, today's objective is that you can identify the three main factors that are necessary to make a new species. Alright? And answering the questions, well, remember from our class of levels of organization, a species is a group of organisms that are able to produce fertile offspring. They can have babies that can have babies, in other words. Alright? As simple as that. Has little to do with, well, a group of organisms that look alike, or, well, they don't always look alike, you know. Sometimes the male and the female are rather different. Paleontologists have, well, there are some famous mistakes of paleontologists in which they have found groups of fossils and they think they belong to two different species of dinosaur, and it turns out to be the same species, just the male and the female, right? So the criterion to define a species is that they can have babies, and those babies can have babies, all right? But now the important question is, how do we make a new species? Well, it actually is a process, not something that happens overnight. Yeah, it is a very long process, and that process is called speciation. And now that we know time at a geological scale, and if you don't remember that, I strongly advise that you go to our previous video, yeah, and take a look at that and then come back here. But well, whatever. Thing is, speciation requires three things, yes? Number one is a huge amount of time. Really huge. I'm talking about thousands, hundreds of thousands and millions of years even here. Okay, the second one is isolation. Not necessarily being alone, but being separated. A certain population might be cut in half by some geological event such as a volcanic eruption, maybe, yes, and then they are isolated. And the third one is adaptation. The new group or the two groups might now be exposed to different climatic conditions or different predators or lack of water or stress, and those conditions can make them adapt to very different situations and then change. If we combine these three things, we might get a new species. After, of course, a very long time. Let's go with a very simple example that has been chasing us for a while, the polar bears. Polar bears are white. Everybody knows that they are very well adapted to the Arctic. They are master predators there. Fish don't see them coming, neither do seals, right? But they weren't always like that. At some point, polar bears were just regular grizzly bears, yes, or brown bears, whatever species. And they lived in the forest where they were pretty good predators, because it's nice to be brown when you're surrounded by brown and green from the trees. But at some point, physiological stress, that's a concept for another day, but well, physiological stress refers to all the conditions that make you unhappy, okay, when you are an animal. Lack of food, lack of resources, whatever. And there was enough stress to kick some of the birds out of the forest. It was something like, there's just no room for us here, there's not enough food, not enough resources, we gotta get going. So a couple of families leave the forest, alright? They move into the next environment, and the next environment was the tundra. We're probably talking about the north, yes? And the tundra turns out to be very white, so for some time they suffered. Lack of resources, lack of food, they were pretty bad there because their fur was brown and they stood out in the white. So they had no other choice but to endure until one day a very happy mutation happened and one of the birds was born without any melanin. Melanin is a protein that gives us color, so in other words, this bird was an albino. They had an albino baby bird. It might have been bad in the forest, but out here it's an advantage because it was white and was able to get better food. Yeah, the fish didn't see it coming, grows strong, and passes its traits to the next generation. Not all of his children, of course, most of them must have been brown, but perhaps he had one which was like that, yeah? And then that one had 2 babies that were white, and then after a long time, most of the birds were white because they were better hunters, and the brown birds died, probably starved, or came back to the forest where they were killed because they were no longer welcome. Yes, pretty sad for them, I know, but that's how it goes, yeah? Nature is not about being good or bad, it's just what it is. There are no morals in nature, well, whatever. The thing is, we have a new species, the white bird. How do we know that it is a new species? Well, at some point, out of an accident, a white bear and a brown bear from the forest meet, and they decide to have babies. Yeah? And they successfully have babies, but those babies can no longer have babies. So it goes out. They go out from the definition of species. The most common example of that we have is the mule. By the way, we call that fertile-less bear and the mule, we call them hybrids. Hybrid animals come from the crossing of 2 species that are similar, but that are different species, yes, similar morphologically speaking, of course, and they are unable to have children, okay? So we have the mule, which is the crossbreeding of a horse and a donkey. Everybody knows horses and donkeys, and they know that they didn't live in the same places, so they were adapted to very different things, okay? At some point, humans brought them together, and they started crossing them, so they have mules. And mules are good for carrying stuff around. You can mount them, whatever, like that, as if they were horses, but they cannot have babies. Now, the interesting thing here is that hybrid animals are proof that evolution and speciation happen at very slow steps. Yes, they are processes. It's not like creationists will say that God just has to crack the fingers and then a new species will be born. It's not like that. It's a process, okay? A hybrid is like halfway in between the evolution of a species into another one, okay? Good. As a small homework, yeah, you might want to look for hybrid animals or plants too. There are some very interesting examples. Actually, any animal that is similar to another animal uses to have hybrid children, which are mules, yes? I don't know, a wolf and a dog, or a lynx and a house cat perhaps, or a tiger and a lion. Yeah, all of those are real examples. You can look it up. Okay, good. Well, please give us a like and a share and subscribe. My name is Sam. This has been today's class. Have a good day.